You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
Uh, Welcome to the Ben and Hobbs show. Hobbs is right there.
Sorry about that. Had to turn down the lights and get the ambiance.
I got worried for a second because I don't keep up what's going on when we're in the pre-show.
That's all right. It's okay, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful episode of This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs. He's Ben. I'm Hobbs. You're in Clown World, but you knew that already. Lots of clowny goodness happened this week.
Yeah, I'm once again, as you can tell by the poor conditions of the lighting and the audio, I'm traveling for work. So I've been working long hours, never really been kept up on a lot of stuff, but I did see lots of bear memes.
Yes. Well, apparently bears are the topic du jour. Have you ever got sprung one of those questions by your significant other of where ask something just utterly retarded like, "Baby, would you love me if I only had one leg? Baby, would you still love me if I was a worm?" Or any of these other
You know,
dumb as dog shit hypotheticals.
thank God my wife does not ask those questions. She doesn't ask stupid questions, but she gives me atypical answers a lot. That's her niche market. So no, but I understand that there probably are women like that.
Well, yeah, apparently this is a kind of a one of those common threads that everybody being connected by the internet has tend to take notice of. That women tend to do this. It's one of those female gotcha questions that men just can't answer right. Like, honey, does this dress make my ass look big? Would you still love me if I was a worm? Dumb shit like that. And now the bear discourse is another one with a bit of a feminist tint to it.
Where did this start at? Has anybody traced it yet? I mean, what, it was just organically popped up on Twitter or what?
As far as I can tell, there was a British TikToker who is the one that started this, and she's like one of these man-hating, misandrist, feminist like type of people. And the question goes like, if would you rather your daughter be alone in the woods with a man or a bear? And of course, the guys will begin to think logically, be like, well, what guy? What kind of bear? Is it just in the general vicinity, or do they meet each other on the road? It's like guys are going to start to war game this out and logically think of it when the woman, like, as I said, is going to have this gotcha question where it's like, aha, you didn't immediately say man, so therefore men are trash and not to be trusted.
I mean,
It's
where
like,
in the world can you possibly be mauled by a bear anymore? It's got to be just Russia and America at this point, right? I mean, maybe they're just so far removed from bears they have no concept of how terrible they are.
right, yeah, it's I posted the question in a group chat that I'm in, and again, the guys were like, well, it depends on what kind of bear and what time of the year it is and whether or not there are cubs around. I'm like, no, you guys you're overthinking it. This is just a aha, men are trash gotcha question,
Mhm.
right? So of course the answer is a man, because maybe the man has good intentions, maybe the man has bad intentions, maybe he's friendly, maybe he'll help you out of the woods. A bear is a fucking bear.
He's just out looking for some honey. He's got a little red shirt on.
Yeah, exactly. No pants and a red shirt. He is not to be trusted.
So yeah, this is everywhere. So now it initially went from the feminists being like, "Oh, look how bad men are," to men being like, "Look how dumb women are."
Precisely. Precisely. And I posted a meme earlier. Maybe I can find it again here for you real quick, to where uh, this woman asked her boyfriend the bear question, and he's like, well, there's this is actually a two-parter here, because let's see here. I think that there are two questions here. One, the fear that women feel of men, and two, the total lack of knowledge that women have about what it means to meet a bear. And then I said that it wasn't about the bear, but rather our perception of men. But he wanted to take another route. How many people know how to judge the differential danger of all these animals, And even an audio about statistics on the number of bears you encounter versus the number of men and the rate of bad interactions. And then I said, I'm not going to talk to you about this, okay? Because clearly we were having two separate conversations. And at that moment, I thought it was insensitive for him to go that route, and I didn't want to hear about it. So basically it backfired, and now she's the victim.
And fair enough. I do a lot of hiking, and I've been where I thought was the middle of nowhere and come across a random dude.
Yeah.
It's a tense situation, but this could probably turn into a Second Amendment discussion.
Yeah. I'll say that a 44 Magnum is equally persuasive against bears and two-legged predators.
Yeah. I mean, you have a great equalizer, easily accessible to you. But I'd still rather come across a guy than a bear in the middle of the woods. At least a guy is going to know that, mutually assured destruction here if you are strapping, and the situation averted. A bear don't give a shit.
Right. Exactly. So there you go, fellas. The answer is immediately say a guy and end the discussion there. Because if your woman asks you this question, she's obviously trying to engage in a gotcha question and wants to get into an argument, because for some reason women just like to argue.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next retarded thing to take over the internet. And this, yep. I mean, it's been 3 or 4 days now. This is still going everywhere.
Yeah, and the discourse and the memes have went from women don't trust men, or look how bad men are, to look how stupid women are, to look how much women want to have sex with bears. because now all the memes have this sort of Rule 34
maybe
sexual undertone to it.
These are like, maybe these type of women, the bear stands for some idealized form of masculinity that their encounters with men are these disgusting soy boys that are always trying to work their ways into their panties with weird comments and pretending they're feminist, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
you could set a clock to a guy declaring to be a male feminist in some type of a sexual assault charge. Maybe it's some type of like Beauty and the Beast scenario, some type of weird fantasy. I don't know. Or maybe it's just that women like to argue and will come up with any stupid reason to do so.
And speaking of weird soy boys, I mean, we could dovetail into the whole campus protest thing going on.
Excellent segue. That does seem to be the archetype.
Again, stuff floating around on the internet. Lots of videos of these college soy boys pushing back against the cops and just getting wrecked.
Yeah. There does seem to be two competing archetypes here. The type of person that applies to be a police officer tends to be fairly fit, and the type of person who cuts a trash can into thirds and thinks it's going to be a shield against beanbag rounds tends to not.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you didn't see this as much during the BLM protests, but those weren't contained just on college campuses where you have a bunch of progressive, thin-necked beta males that are going to be protesting, I guess.
Well, it's not just that. It also kind of speaks to the broader issue of look how fast our government will mobilize for one issue and not for another, because by and large, the protesters on these campuses were being peaceful. They were annoying. They were saying disgusting things, but they were being peaceful until governors and mayors and campus administrators decided that they wanted to crack down super hard, and that's when they started to push back. And now it's gone from being a First Amendment issue to being a civil
they were protesting against the good guys, supposedly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're supposed to be on
You
their
go,
side.
right, but you take a look at the disparity when you have the BLM protests, you have arson, you have assault, and it wasn't peaceful protest becomes riot because the cops decided to get heavy-handed. It was immediate arson, vandalism, rioting, and then the cops came in and were heavy-handed.
Mm.
This one, they were peaceful, disgusting, ugly, nasty things that they were saying, but they were being peaceful, and the cops decided to get heavy-handed, and now the the protesters are pushing back, and there's assault issues going on, and people are, they're like, oh yeah, no, not so peaceful now, are they? And it's like, well, the cops kind of started it, the administration started it, the mayors and the governors are the ones who decided to take the brutal tactics first in this scenario. When you had the BLM riots, the cops were in full retreat
Mm.
or taking a knee in solidarity, or basically giving every deference and every benefit of the doubt to the rioters. In this instance, man, they just cannot wait to crack some
Well,
skulls.
and do you think they had the impression that they might be enjoying wider support or something? I mean, they thought people would start joining them up on the campuses when Hamas's
No,
issues are very low on the totem pole for Main Street America, I assume.
right, and that would have been the end of it. I think that this would have died out if you would have just let them continue to be the peaceful but ugly degenerates that they are. Nobody would have come to their aid. Now that you've got cops whipping the shit out of people who are just kind of like sitting around in a drum circle saying, anti-Semitic shit, then now it's like, wait a minute. I watched the cops take a knee in front of a burning building 2 years ago, and now you guys are cracking skulls because somebody said from the river to the sea. Something is off here.
Mhm.
And I think we all know what that is.
Well, and I saw even Eric Adams was saying, they're taking it too far. Mayor of New York City, he took issue with they were lowering the American flag and putting up a Palestine flag, I guess.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting take from him. But he is very authoritarian for being, a progressive wonder child.
Yeah.
So I guess I mean it seems like they're kind of getting them under control. Is that the correct statement?
Um, I don't know, because I think that they were under control before the cops came in and decided to get heavy-handed with them. We have this anti-Semitism bill that has just passed the House and it's moving on to the Senate. It was rushed through the House. It was taken out of committee and rushed through the House. It had like 92 dissenting votes out of the entire House. If you can find it online, you can look up Representative Chip Roy had probably the best dissent as far as the bill goes. But basically, what it's doing is it's a hate speech law. It's thought police.
Oh,
There are
great. Maybe we'll end up like the
they,
Scottish.
yeah, they are carving out special exemptions for anti-Semitism, and they're allowing anti-Semitism to be defined by the International Holocaust Remembrance Association. So this is I believe it's a European-based organization. So they're going to be not exactly on the side of the First Amendment. They're going to err on the side of censorship. And it carries a lot of penalties, but a lot of the stipulations that it has in there, it's like criticism of the current or former actions of the state of Israel. It's like, so the government of Israel can do anything, and if you criticize them, you're going to be in trouble.
Hmm.
Uh, it says things like saying that the state of Israel is an illegitimate state is defined as anti-Semitism. Some of these things carry felonies if they get their way with them. It's not obviously not going to be something that's prosecuted for us. It'll be like saying it on campus or as a public statement or something like that. It's a very bad bill,
Mhm.
very very bad bill, and it's antithetical to the First Amendment.
Yeah, I just reading a little bit here. Chip Roy, I mean, he's saying that they have to. And then Mike Johnson got behind it, so obviously it's a shit bill since everything he seems to get behind is. I don't know. This guy is. I mean, I don't know. I'm not impressed with him as a House Speaker. I guess.
Me neither,
Uh,
and neither's the Freedom
he's got
Caucus.
some weird issue too, like Gates has, where he has it. He said he had an adopted black son, but it's just a kid that lives with him. Did you see that?
Yeah, he's gone on the record and in interviews back when the BLM riots were on, where he was saying that he was buying into the white privilege myth. He's like, I've got two sons, one black adopted and one biological, and my black son is definitely going to have it harder than my white son. And I'm like,
Well, it
off
turns out the dude's not really adopted. He's just some 19-year-old guy that lives with them.
So was this like some weird
I
pool
don't
boy
know.
scenario?
He like took him in to let him to. I don't know. So it's weird. When you get some time, look it up. It's as weird as the whole Gates thing that's going on. But yeah, start there with anti-Semitism. You've already laid the groundwork. You can do it for anything then.
Yeah, but they won't. That's the thing. They could have done something similar during the BLM riots and would have had knee-jerk but popular support for any type of anti-black rhetoric. The only reason they're doing this is because for some reason our government is beholden to the state of Israel. We are their satrapy.
Yeah, and you could dive in to try and figure that out. But I mean, it's probably all just money. It's always money related.
There's money involved, lots and lots of money involved. There's some type of weird transference of Western guilt for the Second World War that last time I checked, America was on the side that defeated the Nazis. So I don't know why America would have any type of residual guilt over that scenario. And then there's also the revisionist religious aspect of it, where the evangelical Christians take the words of the Bible that say that, the state of Israel is God's chosen people, and they take that extremely literally, where me, on the other hand, I'm, starting to think that it might not be like a chunk of land.
Yeah.
Might be something a little more abstract than
Yeah.
that. In the way, like, when you say like your communion wafer is the body of Christ, it's like it's not literally the body of Christ.
Unless you're Catholic.
It's unleavened bread. You're not engaging in cannibalism.
Get into some deep theology there. If you're Catholic, you think it is, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the end of the First Amendment, I guess. I mean, once you start there,
Well, it'll just be another weapon that the government will use against you.
yeah, it's like Nebraska and their drug tax stamp. Drugs are illegal here, but if you get caught with drugs, they can tack one on for not paying your taxes on your drugs. So, if you get busted for something like, January 6th, I'm sure they would have loved to have been able to throw this on some people looking through Facebook posts. He said something, or listening to our podcast, he said something mean about the tiny hat people, throw another felony on there.
Exactly.
Which, yeah, and the left is trying to get the conservatives in a catch-22 where they're saying, we need to. It's not the same thing, but they're saying we need to persecute these protesters. Like, oh, like January 6th. Completely different situation here.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's so dumb, and the Republicans are walking right into this trap. And that's what I think it is. I think it's a trap. and the Republicans are just happily going into it because, like I said, a lot of the Republicans are evangelical Christians, and they see anything in favor of Israel is something that they need to immediately and full-throatedly support. But if you found that that video of Chip Roy
I did
dissenting,
not. I
we
can
should
only
play
find
that
something
because
3 days ago of him supporting it. Mm-hmm.
really, all right. Well, let me see if I can find it here, and I will.
Yeah, he was all for it, saying they should defund universities that promote anti-Semitism, and we've got a bill coming up. So either something changed on the bill, and he changed his mind, or what? That is
Yeah.
all I could find.
I don't know. I saw a very good one today, and it was actually he was talking about how it was knee jerk and how it was didn't comport with the First Amendment.
Hmm. Well, I'll keep looking. Maybe we can pop it on later. But you had a story I hadn't heard about. James O'Keefe strikes again, I guess.
Oh yeah. So James O'Keefe, with his new O'Keefe Media Group, has a like a citizen journalist called American
Okay.
Swiper that you can actually sign up for it if you want, if you feel like you would be good at this sort of thing, where you get on these dating apps and you seek out these public officials and you get them on hidden camera. And this woman got this guy who is a contractor for a company called Deloitte, and he's been working for the CIA for since 2008, he said, and before that he was working at the NSA. And it's like a 28-minute clip on James O'Keefe's Twitter, and this guy was just talking about how they withheld critical briefing information from President Trump, and how he's like, yeah, Trump's a fucking idiot. We don't tell him anything. And if you've been kind of paying attention to what's been going on in the media in the last week or so, there was about 3 or 4 days where the media was doing their attempted character assassination of James O'Keefe. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. There were these videos dropping of him kind of behaving crudely in a bar with a young woman. And some people were like, "Oh, James O'Keefe is a creep," and blah blah blah. And then 2 or 3 days later, he drops this. It's like, oh,
Oh,
now that
yeah.
makes
Go
sense.
figure. So what?
Yeah, really.
So this person, you said Deloitte, they were like a consulting or what?
Some type of a contractor that works for the CIA. And this guy's been working for the CIA since 2008. He runs the Chinese media center that I guess is like the part of the CIA that covers the China intelligence, CMC. He is a TSSCI security clearance, top secret
Yeah.
compartmentalized information, secure compartmentalized. So let's like top, like the
Yeah.
skiff guy. And he was out there just getting a little toasty, a little drunk, talking to this woman about all the stuff that he does and how the Mike Pompeo and Gina Haspel, the former directors of the CIA, were they were in cahoots with each other to keep things away from President Trump because the intelligence community feared that he would have loose lips and let a lot of state secrets slip to Vladimir Putin or the Chinese, or just blurt something out on live TV or something like that. So they were only giving him, partial information. And yeah, that's a
Yeah.
crime.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little bit, because the commander in chief of the military is out there making military decisions, and if he doesn't have the full picture, people
Right.
get killed. Yeah, and he was also talking about how there's a breakdown of communication between the government agencies, specifically the CIA and the NSA, They were in a bit of a dick measuring contest with each other. They will withhold information from each other. And he said that this has resulted in several agents on both sides getting burned in overseas. And it's like, you know what? It actually reminds me of when I was in high school, right after 9/11, when they spun up the Department of Homeland Security. We had a speaker from the newly spun up DHS speak to my school, and he was talking about what the DHS does and why it existed after 9/11, and he said it was because a lot of the intelligence community didn't talk to each other because they were competing with each other. And then he started to complain about how, yeah, it's a new DHS is a new department, and we're wrangling for funds and wrangling for personnel. And that got me, when it got to the Q&A section afterwards, I raised my hand and I'm like, so you're saying that 9/11 happened because the agencies that we already had were understaffed, underfunded, and competing with each other. So whose bright idea was it to create another department that's understaffed, underfunded, and competing with all the rest? His face turned white as a sheet. And he's like, I'll get back to that question in a little bit. And he never got back to the question.
And look at
it's
him
like,
now.
Government, right?
Now DHS probably has as much power as both of those two, if not more.
Yeah. If not more. Yeah, so O'Keefe and Mario Nafal and Nick Sorter and Alex Jones and Congressman Matt Gaetz all got on a Twitter space last night to discuss the findings of this. And Matt Gaetz is like, yeah, he said, somebody in the chat asked, do you think they're doing the same thing to Biden? And he's like, of course they're doing the same thing to Biden, but for different reasons. They withheld information from Trump because they dislike Trump. They're withholding information from Biden because Biden is too senile to be in charge of anything and doesn't need to have all the information because he's not making any of the decisions.
The issues that they brought up with Trump where he's going to blab, I mean, that is a legitimate concern with Biden. I mean, who knows what the hell he's going to say when he goes up there. I mean, he hasn't made an appearance in a while. This whole next election is just going to be such a shit show.
Yeah, he hasn't made an appearance in public for a while because they're having to surround him with aides as he gets off of either Air Force One or the Marine One helicopter because he is shuffling like C-3PO in Star Wars, and they're afraid that he's going to fall flat on his face. And everybody is calling them out on it. That was something that Bongino was saying the other day. He's like, listen, in my 10 years in the Secret Service, one of the golden rules is that the agents do not get in the shot. Mm-hmm. Like the president stands alone. The agents are always off screen. So to have 2 or 3 agents and a secretary and several aides surrounding this guy all around him, he's like, this shit never happens. This guy is about to fall on his face and they know it. So now they're just hiding him from the public.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 days ago, he made some comments on the protest. He said something about, America is no place for anti-Semitism, blah, 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 against Jews or Arabs. It's like, I don't think Arab people are really facing overt racism right now.
Yeah, we can thank the 5 years to recently after 9/11 for you're an Islamophobe, you're an Islamophobe, you're an Islamophobe.
And all the crap we got to put up with at airport. That's the thing that's bugged me about flying. We have all these lines, and they still haven't dropped the they got to make it look fair that they're checking everybody. You don't have to make it. No, you don't have to make it look fair. It's obvious there's some people are not going to be an airline bomber. But
profiling works.
Shit show with flying that if you got to check grandma in a wheelchair, oh, she might be a bomber. I saw him doing that still. Took a grandma in a wheelchair aside for extra screening. It's like they have a checklist that they got to hit every day so it doesn't look like they're profiling certain people.
They got like a
And
random
it doesn't
number
even need to
generator that
be
pops up. It's like, oh, get this next
all right,
person. It's like
inner city black people. Never been a bomber. You're good to go.
Yep.
You know, somebody from another
yeah.
from another country that enjoys blowing stuff up, instant screening. Sorry. Them's the breaks.
Sorry, this is we're trusting the science here
But
on this
maybe
one.
the
The
bombers,
statistics don't lie.
they say, well, obviously it's working because we haven't had any bombings, or maybe the bombers are just like, fuck it, Boeing's gonna do the work for us. You know.
There you go. Yep. Yeah. Speaking of Boeing, yeah, another whistleblower ended up dying mysteriously of a
And
rapid
not like just
onset
a mild whistleblower. I mean,
infection
he was
of one
blowing the
brain.
lid off on some major issues.
Yeah. This feels like the 60s where inconvenient testimony just tends to disappear.
We just hit it real quick. He worked for their supplier Spirit. Yeah, I was reading this earlier. Spirit Aerosystems, who's pretty much been pointed out as the major issues through everything. And when he worked there, he was on the production line saying, look, our senior management sucks. They're not checking anything. We're still shipping them out. So he brought it up through the usual process, and they decided, now we're going to fire you. So they fired him, and eventually got somebody to listen. And now they're looking into it, and just happened to die.
Yeah, fired him from the job and then fired him from life.
Multiple intubated valve pneumonia, MRSA. I mean, you could certainly kill somebody with, not that I'm putting on a tinfoil hat, but you could certainly kill somebody with MRSA. Spread it around their frequently touched areas.
Oh, yeah.
Good to go. And, there still hasn't been any findings on the guy that supposedly killed himself.
Yeah,
Just odds alone that two whistleblowers died. Just stepping back a little, even what are the odds? Not good.
Should bug all of us a lot more than two whistleblowers dying back to back within like a month and a half of each other is the apathy that everybody seems to have. Like, if it was a military contractor making like tanks or Humvees or something like that, and they were blowing the whistle on like fraud, waste, and abuse, and they happened to disappear, I could understand somebody's apathy towards the situation because it's one of those things that doesn't necessarily affect you, like first order events, right? But you fly on planes. Those Boeing planes take people like you and me all over the place. This does directly affect you or somebody that you know. And the fact that we've had two of these high-level whistleblowers just turn up dead under very suspicious circumstances within about a month and a half of each other, and people are just going,
it's got to be some sort of miracle that there haven't been any planes falling out of the sky. Because, now people are paying attention to stuff that goes on. You see a different, thing pop up all the time. Like, guy was on a plane, he noticed there's a whole bunch of bolts missing on the wing, so he tells a flight attendant, plane's taking off and a wheel flies off the plane as it's lifting up, and maybe this has all been going on for a while, and just now people are paying attention to it.
Yeah, but it shouldn't take a plane falling apart midair and getting caught on camera to make people start paying attention to this sort of stuff. But at the same time, we live in such a high trust society that we regular people shouldn't have to worry about that sort of stuff. We should be confident in the competency of our experts and our maintenance personnel that we
The
shouldn't have to
DEI
worry about that sort
personnel.
of stuff. They call it the competency crisis coming right around the corner, where the DEI is going to get
Yeah.
people to
Well,
be
and that,
DIE.
and it's just shining a lot of light on shady practices in the airline industry, like the plane that the escape ramp blew off mid-flight, which happened to land on the front lawn of
Mhm.
the guy suing Boeing, which had to be divine intervention right there just to put an extra notch in the look at this situation. But that plane was 33 years old, well past recommended service. I mean, this isn't a
Well,
B-52.
there. I was about to say there are B-52s in the air that are old enough to have the current air crew's grandfathers have flown them. So, I mean, you can get an airframe to last a long time, but
Yeah.
at
The
what point does things
B-52 is
wear
a
out?
different, I mean, that's a well-designed plane from the 50s when you had all your nerds, your white nerds building stuff. Not a DEI designed plane
Yep.
from the modern era.
Yeah. It's kind of weird how we seem to be
And
progressing backwards. Things are getting more complicated, more expensive, more difficult to maintain, but that's okay
my
because they're also
apprentice I
getting
was really
worse
young
in
guy.
every
He'd never
single
seen
way.
Idiocracy. And something came up and I mentioned it and he watched it. And
Oh boy.
since I mentioned, I went through and watched it again. I hate that movie because it's so correct. I mean, you just mentioned it right there. It's getting worse.
Yeah.
Everybody got dumber and dumber and they couldn't figure out how to run anything.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's automated and it took all the brain power out of it. Oh, speaking of DEI and all that other stuff, have you heard about what happened down in
Yeah,
Baton Rouge?
I did. Why don't you go?
Yeah, so apparently Baton Rouge isn't Baton Rouge anymore, or at least not entirely. Um, there is a very clear demarcation point of the ethnic makeup of several neighborhoods in Baton Rouge, and it happens to overlay exactly with the map of crime
That's
in
racist.
Baton Rouge. And somebody, maybe, but is it true? I'm not saying that to be racist or to point out any type of ethnic differences. I'm just pointing out because it's a
Right.
statistical fact. So, some people from the south side of town have been in a legal battle in the Louisiana Supreme Court for the past 10 years, trying to secede from the city of Baton Rouge and establish a new township. And they recently succeeded. The new township is named St. George, and it is very clearly defined borders. They are going to be using the local tax revenue to build a series of new schools in order to get their children out of the failing inner city Baton Rouge public school system. Uh, yeah, so that's a thing, and of course it's
Kind of like what
racist.
happened in South
Of
Africa,
course,
except it was the anniversary of the ending of apartheid. And I was staying at my dad's house last weekend, and I never watch mainstream media, but he's watching BBC, and it's a whole news. It's like an hour-long thing about how South Africa has changed since the ending of apartheid, and they're just talking about how the energy system's falling apart, the infrastructure's falling apart, and they're like they can't seem to understand why. You know? And they said a couple things. It's like, oh, you're that close to figuring it out, but you just can't say it.
yeah. Yeah, you can't say it. See, that's the thing. It's like you're not allowed to say it. And then when people point out, well, what do you mean you're not allowed to say it? Who's stopping you from saying it? And it's like, just okay, do an experiment. Go on Twitter, start an anonymous new account, and say it. See what happens. There's no law enforcement that's going to kick down your door and tell you to stop and haul you off to jail. That would be the hard power consequences, which fortunately in the United States we don't have to worry about yet until this anti-Semitism bill passes through the Senate and goes to Biden's desk. But it's the soft power consequences that you have to worry about. That's why you're not allowed to say these things.
They didn't, after apartheid ended, the people running stuff didn't just say, oh, well, this is over. I can't be racist anymore. I'm leaving. They got ran out of there, running for their lives. Yeah,
Same
running
thing
for their
happened in
lives.
Zimbabwe.
And you can't say it was just because it was colonized that the country ended up being a shithole. There's plenty of shithole examples throughout the rest of Africa that were never colonized.
Right. Well, there's this a bit of cognitive dissonance that goes on with these the colonizing or these naturally segregated neighborhoods like what's going on in Baton Rouge. That wasn't enforced.
Mm-mm.
Nobody said white people over here, black people over here. They just you tend to self-segregate into people who are like yourselves. That was that soft power, that self-segregating into the areas. But there's a cognitive dissonance that you have to maintain in your head. It's when white people enter an area, it's gentrification. But when white people leave an area, it's white flight. And both of these things are bad simultaneously.
Yeah. It'll be interesting how that works out for Baton Rouge, because just being involved in city government, they're going to lose a shitload of money when that breaks off.
I watched a podcast of the Lotus Eaters segment about this very story today, and the now that it has split, the median income in St. George, which is the new city that's been formed, is $30,000 higher than the median income of Baton Rouge as a whole before the split. So now I'm going to imagine that the disparity is even greater between the two halves of the city now. The crime rate is half. The number of welfare and food stamps recipients is half. It's one side is going to get better and the other side is going to get worse.
When the Libertarian Party had their convention in New Orleans, I rode up to Baton Rouge, and it's kind of a shithole. So, yeah, they're not going to deal well with that at all.
No, and the problem is that there's not going to be a sort of come to Jesus moment for the people who live in Baton Rouge. What they're going to do is they're going to get angry, they're going to get resentful, they're going to scream racism, and rather than get their shit together and look at what the winning formula is, they're probably going to spiral into a resentment spiral and make things infinitely worse. And then we'll build a wall, a big, beautiful wall across Baton Rouge, and we'll make the inner city pay for it.
I'm just curious here. I'm going to quick look at the city council makeup of Baton Rouge. I'm going to guess that, yeah, I mean, the thing is, it seems like a lot of the people running these inner cities into the ground, their city council is made up of a lot of well-meaning, idiotic, progressive white people. That's who wants to defund the police usually.
Mm-hmm. Now you go into an inner city area that's got high in crime, and you ask them what they want. Do they want more police? And they're like, hell yes. It's the well-meaning, idiotic white people who don't have any skin in the game that are usually the ones that are.
So Baton Rouge here, you got 6 white people, two black people. Oh, 7. Oh, there's 2 more. So you got 10 white people to 2 black people for Baton Rouge, which I'm guessing has some idiotic policies self-inflicted by progressives. But, speaking of libertarian conventions, the Don is going to be making an appearance. I saw this and I thought, terrible move by the Don.
I don't know, man. I don't believe it. I think that they're going to have like some type of an impersonator or something. Because I can't believe that the Republican candidate is going to want to come to speak at the LNC. Not to mention that he's in these court cases right now where the judge had to basically have his arm twisted to allow Trump to go and see his own sons graduate high school. So is he still going to be in court? Is he going to get a release
just be the
by
chef's
Marchand?
kiss on how stupid the LP has become, that they fall for some Trump staffer just bullshitting them, and
well, allegedly they sent out invitations to Joe Biden, Donald Trump, RFK, Jill Stein, and
why?
Cornel West. They wanted everybody to come because maybe they think they're going to get them all up on stage and just have like a "Hasha, we're in a debate now, debate." And
why? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to hear from? They're picking a candidate to run against these people, so let's have them to the convention and let them talk to our. It makes no sense.
But on the same side, the Libertarians don't have anybody really running for president.
So many of their policies that they've stuck by over the years, like open borders, have shown to be a total shit show. You can't, the unregulated drugs apparently is a shit show if you have a social safety net, because who's not going to, I've said this before, who's not going to just sit around and get high and eat government cheese if you can do it, apparently.
Not to mention everything has a lethal dose.
And I think it looks like weakness if Trump wants to talk to him. It seems to me like he's wasting his time trying to pander for 0.5% of the vote.
I don't know. Like I said, man, it doesn't seem real, and so I think it's going to be like an impersonator.
You think the LP's doing it they're doing it, or you think? I don't know.
No, I think that the Libertarian Party has hired a Trump impersonator to come and make fun of Trump. Maybe they'll have a Biden impersonator too, and they'll have a fake debate where they just debate between 2 straw men. Have you ever seen that Freedom Tune sketch where it's two straw men? Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
But they put it up on their convention page. That's asking to get sued if you're saying Trump's gonna speak at the convention or speak to the convention. It could just be a pre-recorded whatever, like Ron Paul did that one year. But I guess they set the precedence with that. They said Ron Paul was going to be at the convention. Yeah, he's at the convention on a pre-recorded video. And so they might pull the same thing. Yeah, Trump's going to show up. Here he is, pre-recorded video from Trump.
Yep. I don't know. It
seems like it pisses more people off than anything. Trump wasn't a libertarian by any means. I would vote for Trump just for the lulz, just because. That's the only reason I like Trump. It's just because we've swung so far one way, just to get him to piss him off, is what I like about him.
Yes.
But there's not a single
definitely makes
libertarian.
all the
There's
right
not a
people
single
angry.
issue that Trump did that I was like, oh, yeah, that really speaks to libertarians right there. Nothing like getting rid of bump stocks, tax cuts, maybe. Yeah,
Tax cuts,
but the
maybe.
rest of it was a disaster when looked through the lens of a libertarian.
But that's right. So the right libertarians that are kind of in charge of things now in the LP are selling out their principles and inviting the Republican candidate and basically just confirming what everybody says, that the LP is just Republicans with weed.
Mhm.
Or we can look at it in sort of a white pill, that we're making overtures to the candidate and likely winner of the next election in order to possibly influence him in the direction of libertarianism. Because during the Trump administration, we had Rand Paul that they said was kind of the Trump whisperer on a lot of things. And he did influence Trump more, get him away from the hardline authoritarian right position and more into the libertarian right camp of things. And him and Trump became pretty good friends. They became very close. And Rand Paul was kind of there being like, no, chill out. That kind of goes against the spirit of America. Here's what we need to really do. So maybe
Well, yeah, but either of those
they think
options, the
that's
people
going to
in
be.
power now, I used to be fairly active, and I was considered a pragmatist. We should be trying to get people elected so they can start affecting policy, no matter what their background is. And the people in power now, shit on us like, oh, you should be pushing this strict libertarian message. If you get a candidate that used to be a Republican, they're always going to be a Republican. So if they're caving on that after they talk shit about it, they've just lost all legitimacy. Yeah, that's coming up end of the
I don't know.
month.
We'll have to wait and see. I haven't seen anything other or outside of the sort of like hyper focused libertarian circles. Haven't. Yeah, like I see the Fakertarians group bitching about it. I see the Mises Caucus group laughing about it. But other than those two like hyper focused libertarian
it's just so
insider
weird.
groups,
I think you're onto
I haven't
something.
seen
It's a
anything.
stunt. I mean, maybe their ticket sales were way down, which I've heard they are. They're like in the toilet because who wants to get?
Maybe.
One, it's in Washington D.C. A lot of libertarians go to these things for like it's a little bit of vacation. I mean, they've had them in Vegas, fun. They've had them New Orleans, Orlando. It's like,
fun.
I just came from Washington D.C. It's not a fun time. You don't go Austin.
Supposed to have Austin. Supposed to have Austin a couple of years ago when COVID was going through, and they called it off because of COVID. And then the next year they did it in Orlando again. So I was hoping that they would go back to Austin.
Yeah.
Because I would like to go to Austin.
Yeah, DC, one of the most expensive places to visit. It sucks there. I'm sure their ticket sales are down. I mean, I think you're onto something. This is just it's a ticket selling scheme, and it's going to be a Donald Trump impersonator. That's what I'm going with. But we're hitting up on an hour. I think we tapped everything out.
I'm sure a lot of other stuff has happened.
World news. Yeah, I wasn't up on world news at all. So, guys, check out Simon and Sam's show, Weaponized News. See what's been going on in the world. Like I said, I've been too busy to keep up on the world stuff. Just been following a little bit domestic. So, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. Follow us, Rhodes, number 2 Liberty, everywhere that you'd like. That we're not kicked off of. Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. We're on Twitter as Rhodes R2L Twatter, right? No, R2L Podcast at Twatter.
At R2L Pod
we post
on
there once in a while. So see you next week. Stay honky.